So, hello everybody. Today I am going to do a review of the RPG Monster of the Week, published by Evil Hat Productions. It's got a copyright of 2015 and the author is Michael Sands. Now, this was recommended to me by my partner in crime, Vicky, who said, well, you know what, considering that Versen is a bit weird, this might actually work with the Versen universe without using the Versen rules. And so I got the book. It was a bit difficult to come by because Evil Hat Productions have decided not to ship to Europe. So I had to find a European supply. And the problem is the only supply that had it was in the UK. And of course, with Brexit, things are a little bit more difficult these days. But now I hold this copy in my sweaty paws. And before I go into any detail, this is highly recommended. Even if you are not going to play Monster of the Week type mysteries, if you're not even planning on doing this. And I mean, the picture itself kind of gives you an indication of what you're looking at. Superheroes fighting super monsters. But even if this is not your cup of tea, this book is a very good rule set for creating adventures, for creating a story for a group to encounter. So if you have problems coming up with good encounters or need even just a skeleton of how to create and a scaffolding of how to create a story for an RPG, get this book because it's got all of the information that you need in a very, very concise format. Okay, so Monster of the Week deals with the basic idea that you might be familiar with if you've ever watched X-Files, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, or even Xena. Supernatural is mentioned. I've never seen the series, so I don't know how it works. Or Angel, the Buffy offshoot. So there are, it's the idea that you have a story arc which can go on over a whole season. Let's say Buffy Summers fighting the Hell God Glory and trying to protect her key sister Dawn is the arc. But then every so often, or most of the time, the Scooby Gang will be facing a Monster of the Week, which is a bad. It's not maybe the final big bad, but it's pretty serious. Like, let's think of the huge snake that Buffy has to fight in the Glory story arc. And what happens in that particular mystery is the Monster of the Week scenario. The book itself is split into two. You have the first part, which is for the players, and the second part, which is for the keeper. It is completely self-contained. In order to play, you only need this book. And the players don't need the book. You can actually just give them the playbooks, which you can download as well. And the playbooks are essentially the character sheets. The basic tenet is that each mystery has a couple of threats: a monster, minions, bystanders, and locations. So these are all threats. And each of these threats has one avatar, as it were, or several. When it comes to bystanders, there could be several. When it comes to locations, there could be several. When it comes to the monster, there's probably just the one, because that's this guy, the big one that you need to fight. But minions could be, there could be plenty, and there could be different ones. But for each of these threats, each avatar of this threat, let's say locations, has a particular meaning that it brings to the story. So a location, like a library, would be a hub where you can reveal information. You might send your investigators into the tunnels underneath a building to find something. That could be a maze. So that would be its particular interpretation. And then, of course, the maze is supposed to separate the investigators from one another. So each thread has multiple avatars, and each avatar has a particular function in the story. So it looks and it sounds like really black and white, but it works because this is basic storytelling techniques that are explained here. For everything that you bring in, you have to have a reason why you bring it in and what it's going to contribute to the story. And then on the other side of the coin are the hunters. The hunters are a group of people who are somewhat special. So we're not talking, okay, so these are just your average Joe Soap. Most hunters have a particular ability, a specialty. So you could have a chosen one who has been ordained by destiny or by some form of divine intervention to do something great. And they have a fate. That fate could also mean that they will sacrifice themselves and die. You can have somebody who is the expert. They are someone like Giles, for example, from Buffy. Or you could have someone like the Flake. So that's somebody who kind of looks at things that seem to be very different for everybody else, but they can kind of spot patterns between seemingly separate incidences. So they're like the Fox Mulders of this world. Then you have the Initiate. That would be somebody who belongs to some kind of sect and does their bidding or works for them. And for all of these avatars, as it were, of archetypal warriors for good, you get a playbook. And this playbook basically details their strengths, if they have any, their weaknesses, what they can do, how good they are at certain things. And it's all centered around ratings, which in other games would be called stats like charm, or charisma, depending on which game you play, or it could be strength, and so on and so forth. So here you've got something like intelligence, it's called sharp, and you get ratings in those particular abilities. And then when you play the game, the system works based on moves. And moves are things that you perform to advance the story. It basically tells you if somebody does something that is an everyday thing, like I walk from A to B to buy myself a coffee. Of course, you don't roll. That's not a move. But if you, for example, say, I'm going to investigate a mystery, then that's a move that is associated with a particular die roll. Die rolling is very simple. You only need 2 6-sided dice. So you don't need any specialty dice. You can play this, you can get the book, and you just take 2 d6s and you're good to go. Then you look at the result, you add any modifiers that you may have, and then you look at the final result. Now, any result of 6 or less is a fail. Any result of 10 or above is a success. And if you roll between 9 and 7, you are kind of successful, but there's going to be a trade-off. Something's going to happen. And this is something that I've not seen done like this before. The keeper doesn't get to roll. The keeper only has moves that he can use or she can use depending on what the player's rolls yield. So if somebody critically succeeds at something, then, you know, the antagonist that is played by the keeper doesn't really get much to do. But if they, for example, fail, then of course the keeper comes in with a move that'll probably even hurt. Or if it's one of those semi-failures where yes, you have succeeded, but there is going to be consequences, then the keeper also has various moves at their disposal. And talking about it makes it seem like this is very sterile. So basically, okay, I make a move, I roll. But that's not how this works. I mean, you can play it like this, but you don't have to, and you shouldn't. So let's take the move kick ass, which is essentially somebody attacking someone else. So that's a hunter move. And of course, instead of saying, okay, I roll to kick ass, you say, oh my God, there's that giant slug over there. I'm going to take my rifle, which I've slung over my shoulder, and I'm going to take it down. I'm going to get down on the ground and I'm going to aim at it. I'm going to breathe in, breathe out, and then I'm just going to fire. And then the keeper will go, okay, roll. And then you roll the related combination of dice and stats, dice and ratings, which is, of course, the kick some ass move, but you don't really say, oh, this is what I'm going to do. Or, for example, when you say act under pressure, which is another move, you can say, okay, roll me act under pressure, or you can also say, roll me cool. And then the person rolls the cool stat. So they have maybe +1 to cool, they roll, and they roll a 12, double 6, which is a critical success, plus the 1 is 13. Oh, you've got this. You are rocking this. You are fine. There's a tightrope in front of you, but you just basically dance across it as if you were a ballerina, and you make it to the other end, and there is the vampire, and you just kapow, hit it in the face. So essentially, the moves are kind of what dictates what can be done. And there's a list of moves, some of which are open to everybody, some of which are only open to the monsters, and some of which are only open to particular types of hunters. So each hunter is different. And this is also something that is stressed in the rules. When you put together the posse, as it were, the Scooby Gang, no two people can have the same role. And I think this is very essential because it means that you can shine spotlights on different people and everybody contributes to the story equally, but very differently. Because one of the main tenets for the keeper is be a fan of the hunters. It is your job to throw terrible things at them, but at the same time, you want them to succeed. You want this to be epic. You want this to be memorable. And for those of you who kind of go, and I'm one of those people, oh, but I don't like superhero games. I hear you, and it's not a superhero game. It's not a superhero game. It's a game that can be quite deadly, but they have luck that they can use to mitigate the worst fate, so they don't necessarily, die. So it's not like Call of Cthulhu, where you almost expect your player characters to be dispensable and to die like flies. It's not like that at all. But these are people that have an edge. They are at an advantage. They are not your normal person that you see every day walking past. They are somehow special. And the whole story of this particular role-playing game book is, on the one hand, explaining the system and showing two, and I'm going to do a create your own hunter video, which is not going to be very difficult because it is really super simple, but just to give you an idea of what it looks like. And also which moves you as the keeper have, but in my opinion, what makes it even more important to people who want to run games, not so much play them, but run them, is a detailed, almost playbook of how to create a mystery, which rules to follow, how to sit down and create a monster, how to sit down and create locations, how to sit down and create threats, how to sit down and create the structure that you need in order to build a story, make it interesting, and then also advance it. And that's something that they, it's a timer mechanism. And I really like this one. And a lot of you who have maybe been writing adventures for a long time will probably have come to this organically, So, okay, so I want to run an Alice Baker story in my Alice Baker universe. So I need something that Alice Baker can investigate. So what am I going to do? So in the most recent video series, we are playing against a Wendigo. I came across the Wendigo, of course, because it's a very interesting story. It's been out there in the public domain in the form of adventures. There is a very, very famous story by Algernon Blackwood, And of course, it's also a thread that exists in Native American storytelling. So basically, you have the big bad. So then, what type of a big bad is it? What does it want? And then you just go through a list of things and you just put it down. Or you can take this book and just go through a set of steps that allow you to do this really quickly. And that doesn't mean that you need the book if you're experienced. But I'm quite experienced, but I really enjoy the book because I could just refer back and go, okay, well, I have a couple of locations. What would suit, just to give you inspiration. But what I really, really like, because I've never seen it done like this, and this is something that I find quite tough, is the countdown. So they say that each mystery has a countdown, and they have given it a color indication. So first you start by day, then follow the shadows, then the sunset, dusk, nightfall, and then midnight. And the things that you have here in the list are the things that happen if the hunters do not get involved, or if something that they have tried to do fails. And I find that is a really interesting structure. It is very simple, but it is very effective. And so, and it also gives you tips on how to run a single mystery, like a one shot, for example, how to run consecutive mysteries with your hunter group, but also how to have like a story arc that is unfolding. Let's say Dawn the Key is being threatened by Glory, the hell god, and then how you can basically develop this over time. Because in addition to being somewhat supernatural, most hunters have some kind of supernatural or superhuman ability. They are a lot tougher. They have luck. They can prevent death. The idea is also that the group has to have a reason to be together. So when you create the characters in the first session, each character also gets to pick two histories. One that they have with another person. So basically they have to, let's say you have 4 players and player A gets to go first. They have to pick a history item that they have with player B, one with player C and one with player D. When player B's turn comes around, he has to pick 3. One that he has with player A, one with C and one with D. So player A at this stage already has 2 histories, as does player B. And so you basically go around the table so that each player has 2 history items that connects them with every other player. And they don't need to be positive. They could be ambiguous. They could be negative. But the idea is that there is something that drives them together. Also, why are they together? They could be a family. They could belong to the same agency. They could be the survivors of an apocalypse, and the last ones, or they got stranded on a weird island, Dr. Moreau's island, something like that. But there has to be a reason why they work together. So in that respect, it is a lot like Versen, where you also have this idea that they work together. They're put in there because they all belong to this society. Or Trail of Cthulhu, Bookhounds of London, which centers around, it's a gaslight Victorian age scenario where you basically, where everyone is a member of some kind of book club, or they belong to, there's a bookshop and everybody kind of has a relationship to this one, to give people a reason to adventure together. And of course, this is also a way of getting away from this question, why are we doing this in the first place? Why do I care about you? Why do I care about these people? And you also see this, of course, in games like A Town Called Malice, where, as I've explained, everyone has to have a relationship with everyone else, and it can be a positive one or a negative one. So all of this is dealt with in this book. It gives detailed instructions on how to run a scenario, how to run a mystery, how to create it, what to do between mysteries, what the keeper needs to do, how to bring back people who may have not been able to participate one week because they were off, somewhere else, but everybody else was playing, what you can do there. And it also tells you, and I think this is something that I've never read in such detail, but also so explicitly, about how to wrap it up. Once because you get to level up quite quickly as well. So once everyone is leveled up beyond the 5th level, they get additional very, very powerful moves. So they become really powerful. So at some point, it kind of becomes unwieldy because you're really dealing with superheroes. There is even one advanced improvement, which is to retire to a safe place, and somebody could pick this, and then when they do, you as the keeper know, okay, so this player wants to retire this character. Maybe even the player themselves wants to retire, but it's more likely that they just say, okay, well, my character's story is now done. I want to maybe change characters. Or there could be characters that have a built-in shelf life, like the Chosen One. Fate will come to call. Or there is one, and I forget which one, that has kind of like a dark side, and the dark side will at some point take over and will subsume their bright side. So, they have a built-in shelf life, and at some point that character becomes unviable or may even die. So, and they also deal with how to wrap it up. How after maybe 20 to 30 to 40 sessions, depending on, how you play, how to wrap it up. And I think this is really well done as well, which brings me to the last thing I want to say. This book is exceptionally well written. You can read it from cover to cover. I started on the Thursday, it's Saturday today. I didn't spend all of these 3 days reading flat out. I've done other things as well. But you can read it really well. It's easy to retain the information. It does sometimes strike you maybe as a bit repetitive because the same information gets presented several times, especially the lists, but that helps to consolidate the knowledge. I don't know, I think it retails at... It doesn't say, but I think I paid, I want to say 20 euros for it. It is in black and white. I've also got the Tome of Mysteries that I haven't read yet, but that I will also be looking to review. Also, there are 2 mysteries in there which are fully fleshed out, which are fully ready to play. So basically, if you want to know how this works, you can just pick one and play it, or just, drop it in if you haven't had time to prepare your own. With regard to what it looks like, well, you have sometimes black and white drawing. The style is basically, the beauty lies in the eyes of the beholder. What you will notice is when you look at it that it all seems to be quite contemporary. I mean, she's wielding a chainsaw. Okay, here we've got somebody with an assault rifle. Yeah, and she's also got like a gun. Which brings me to the question: how much is this centered in our world, in a certain time? Well, first of all, at the moment, all of the stuff that I've read so far also is always centered in today's world and the Western world. However, I would say that the storytelling mechanisms and techniques would work for any world and any time. You could play in our world and set it in a future dystopia, utopia, you choose it, but probably dystopia. You could do this on a space station, doesn't matter. You could also do this, I would say, in a medieval fantasy world, but then maybe the magical side would be a lot more pronounced because you have fewer weapons. I mean, you don't just have like a chainsaw and an AK-47 and several handguns. They don't exist, but somebody might be running around with a sword and a crossbow, and then the magic users, because there is magic in this book, may be a lot stronger. So I think you could use it for everything. But the way it's written, and even the 2 mysteries that are in this book, ready to play, are set in the present. So I would say 2015, that's the copyright of this book, and I would say that's when this book was first published in this particular version. Yeah, and the imprint that I have has had its playbook look updates applied in August 2020, so it is less than a year old. And yeah, it's a recommendation from me. If you want to play this kind of game, if you want to kind of be Buffy and Angel and bring Cordelia in, this is your game. Or if you just say, well, I'm really interested to learn about a new rule set, or to also learn about how to create mysteries, how to create such encounters, such storylines, I would also recommend it to people who are game masters and want to, you know, spice up their game. So that's Monster of the Week, Michael Sands, published by Evil Hat Productions, powered by The Apocalypse. I have not checked out Apocalypse or apocalypseworld.com. This seems to be some kind of game engine, but you don't need it in order to play. You don't even need to know how it works, because I certainly don't, but I have no problem playing this. But of course, this is just my review. And the easiest way to judge for yourselves how this works is to watch it in action. And I'm very happy to say that there is a 10 episode arc that was played in 2019 and that you can watch on the internet, where you can see a group of people going through a story arc and using this system, Monster of the Week. And I'm going to link it below this video, and you can see the system in action for yourselves. So that's all from my side. Monster of the Week. Have a lovely day. Bye bye.